And we are live. There we go. All right, I'll go ahead and call to order the regular city council meeting for June 20th, 2023. Councilmember Gardner advised that he would not be able to make it due to a family obligation, which brings us to invocation and pledge of allegiance, which will be led by Councilmember Mazzoni.
And let us pray. Father, tonight as we do the city's business, please grant your wisdom so we make good choices. As always, grant your blessing on our first responders, our police, fire, so they protect our citizens. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Mazzoni. With that, we will move on to approval of the June 5th regular meeting minutes. Y'all received a copy of that in your packet.
Second.
I've got a motion and second to approve the minutes for June 5th city council meeting. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. We will move on to public comment. I have numerous public comment cards, most of which are on an agenda item, so we will get to those when we get to that agenda item. I do have one from Mark Nettles. Come on down and state your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Mark Nettles. I live at 64 Garden Oaks Drive here in beautiful crime-free Maumelle. And the reason I'm here tonight is that I saw on the city's webpage that they had a Civil Service Commission position open, and that the 14th was the deadline, 4 p.m. I was here at 8 a.m. when the doors unlocked to turn in my resume, and I was told by the receptionist that that was a typo. And then later in the day, I was contacted by the mayor's chief of staff and was apologized to that would honor my resume, and I faxed it to him. And he asked me to be here tonight, and so I'm here. I was a little disappointed when I left that morning that number one, I was now late for work for something that I was told that was a typo. And then later was told that it was not. So I kind of went on an emotional roller coaster ride there. I'm sure you can understand how that kind of felt. But anyhow, I would just like to ask that in all fairness, that council consider my application or my request for appointment or to apply for the position of a civil service commissioner.
All right, thank you, sir. I get normally we don't address public comments, but just to give the city council a little bit of background, as y'all know, the city council appointed and interviewed 2 people at the last city council meeting for the Civil Service Commission seat. There was some incorrect information that was placed on the city website and on social media that said that the deadline to apply was the 14th, which was several days after the appointment. And so that's where we are right now. Councilmember Mosley?
Yes, sir. I heard about this late last week, and I emphasize with you. And I went ahead and called and talked to our city attorney to ask what alternatives might be to go ahead and maybe do a redo with your name in the hat or anybody else that put their name in before that deadline or was confused by it all or whatever.
Yes, sir.
And I would like to ask the city attorney to maybe discuss the 2 methods that we might be able to do that.
And really quick, Mr. Nettles, you can have a seat if you'd like. I suspect we'll be talking for a little while. Mr. City Attorney?
Yes. So there are, I think, two ways that would reopen this position on the Civil Service Commission. One would be, at the last meeting, the council appointed Chief Williams to the seat. So one way would be that if Commissioner Williams resigned his position, that would reopen the spot. The other way would be what is called a motion to reconsider, which is a mechanism in our city code which says that any time after a vote is taken, at the same meeting or at the next subsequent meeting, if a member of the majority, you mean somebody who voted for it and it passed, moves to reconsider, and then that motion is seconded, and if then a majority of the city council, that would be 5 votes, vote in favor of reconsideration, that would cancel the prior vote. So that can happen either at the same meeting that the vote is taken or at the very next meeting. So those are the two ways to reopen the position if the council wanted to do that.
Good, thank you, sir. I'm in favor, out of fairness, I mean, I know it was legal that we appointed somebody, but out of fairness, I think we ought to consider doing a redo and on this item, and I'd like to, does city attorney have an opinion on this as to what's fair and that sort of thing?
The prior vote was legal. There are no special notice requirements on state law or in the city code. So the prior vote was legal. That's the extent of my legal opinion on the matter. Of course, sometimes lawyers give opinions beyond just legal considerations. I can certainly empathize with the applicant, but no, my legal opinion is that it was legal. Whether the council wants to do anything else with it, reconsider it on grounds of fairness or otherwise, that will be for the council to decide.
Okay. With that, I was in the minority on that vote, but if somebody that was in the majority that voted for the gentleman that won would like to make a motion to reconsider, I'd be happy to second their motion.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Got a motion to reconsider the appointment of Sam Williams to the Civil Service Commission. Recusal? Was there a second on that?
I second that.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. I'll go ahead and open that up for discussion. Councilmember Williams, would you be recusing? Councilmember Holt?
If I'm understanding correctly, that the resume was submitted in proper time and order, the incident that occurred is that we, or the council, the city, missed his information and overlooked it or whatever happened, and that he has a right, if I'm understanding correctly, to be able to be considered, and we more or less as a moral responsibility have a responsibility to reconsider and give him opportunity for all, and with no dispersion against or anything against any other member that was considered. It's just that all members should be given a fair chance. So I would recommend that we do whatever process we need to do, whether we don't consider it in this particular one, but at the next meeting, as the council said, our attorney said.
So you can, if the council votes to reconsider today, this would be the last chance, today would be the last chance to pass a motion to reconsider, and that would cancel the prior vote. However, if the council does vote to reconsider, that cancels the prior vote, then the city council could set it off for the next meeting or 2 meetings to have all the applicants come in or set a new deadline, however the council wants to do it.
Right.
But today would be the last day to do a motion to reconsider.
So we've made the motion to reconsider it, and it's been seconded, is that correct?
There's a motion and a second to reconsider. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And just to follow up with something you said, Councilmember Holt, the council didn't miss any applicants, right? Like the date that so I'm saying it wasn't the council's fault, obviously, that there was a different date published on the city website. So, does that make sense? I think I just confused it more. Okay, I have a motion and a second to reconsider. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of reconsideration, please signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. Does the council have any guidance on how it would like to proceed going forward? That is, just grab the applications that we received in a timely manner and bring those folks back in for an interview, or perhaps repost the listing with a good date on it this time, or some other alternatives. Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I would suggest we reopen it for applications through the Wednesday before our next meeting, which I guess would be not tomorrow, but the next Wednesday. And then make a decision at our next council meeting.
Councilmember Mazzoni?
Is there any, now that you know, would you know of any other precedent on this happening, and what was the action taken by that city? Probably stretching the dark, but.
I know of no other precedent of this happening. We continue
ask.
to move into unprecedented territory with Civil Service Commission appointments, so. Councilmember Holt?
If I remember correctly, the lady that also posted in the original consideration said that she had not been notified or did not know about the second time that we went through the process, and she, it's my understanding that she had an interest in submitting her resume again also. So if we repost it, it would just give it open to everybody, that we could once and for all make sure everyone's been notified and go through the process then, so that this won't happen again.
So I understand y'all want to reopen it to everyone, not just those that applied by the posted deadline,
Correct.
and make an appointment at the next city council meeting? Yes. In theory. Okay. Okay. Thank you again, Mr. Nettles. Thank you for your application. Apologize for the mix-up. Madam City Clerk.
And just to clarify, I just want the council to know that I take 100% responsibility for that typo and for that error. What happened is, as the mayor stated, we are experiencing unprecedented times with the civil service appointment, and because the vote continued to be pushed off, the timing of my advertising was shorter than normal. By the time we posted the advertisement, the term had already ended for the current position, so it was just a little bit shorter. So what was posted was the original post and not the amended post.
Thank you. So the remainder of the public comment cards I have are on agenda items. So that moves us on to financial statement review. Before we bring Ms. Sousa up, I've got Liz Mathis here to talk about, come on down, to talk about the 2021 ACFR. There's been a few questions recently, and so rather than me try and relay that, I figured we'd just bring in the person who knows what's going on. Liz?
Good evening. Thanks for having me back. I've still been around the last couple months supporting the city with payroll, which actually I did a little bit longer than we originally planned, but we got that transitioned off my plate at the end of May to the finance and HR teams. So now my sole focus is on the ACFR, a little bit behind because the payroll stuff took longer, and as much as I'd love to be able to say I can stay up all night and do all of these things, I am limited on energy levels. So working on finishing up 2021's ACFR this week. I do believe I'll have all the footnotes completed and all that fun stuff wrapped up by the end of the week. So I asked the audit firm if we had everything to them this week and a draft by Monday. You know, what's our timeline for review and getting a response back to you? And they said it would likely be the end of July, just with their other obligations. That's about a month past when we hoped to have this finished. And if I've learned anything over the last 3 years of working on catching up the city's audits and cleaning things up, this is number 4 we're finishing here. Sometimes it just takes a little longer than we think. Those reports are very detailed, and one little thing can kind of hang it up. But I think we're in a good place moving forward and should be able to get everything wrapped up here for you soon so that Beatrice can then pick up and learn how to prepare one and work on 21's report, or 22's report. But I can say with all the confidence in the world that 22 is reconciled and closed out and tidied up, and there's lots of stuff in the file ready to go for her. And that was not quite the case when I got here. So I feel very confident that in the last 3 years, aside from catching us up, we've also done system implementations to improve the systems that the city has to keep track of finances. We've cleaned up the chart of accounts so that you have better reporting, which I think you're going to hear a little bit about when Ms. Sousa comes up in just a few minutes. And so I'm very proud of all the work we've done over the last 3 years to get us to today with stuff tying up in nice little bows for us. Lots of work still to be done, but I have no doubt that Beatrice is already well on her way to picking up that mantle and running with it. So.
Thank you. Were there any questions about the ACFR? We'll go into the actual financial statement review afterward. Councilmember Holt?
I don't have any questions about that, but we owe you a great debt of thanks, and for your enduring patience. And we're not difficult. I mean, we're not easy to deal with, I understand. So thank you for your patience.
You're very welcome. I have thoroughly enjoyed the last 3 years with the city, and it was bittersweet moving on. But sometimes you just have to make decisions for your family and other things. Otherwise, I have a feeling I would have been here for quite a long time with the city. I've truly enjoyed my time here and working with all of you and the people of all of our amazing employees here in Maumelle, as well as the community. It's been a joy.
I want to echo what Councilmember Holt says. We've been very fortunate to have you here and working. I used to absolutely hate you. That was when you quit. I hate you a lot less now because I feel like the finance department is in good hands with Beatrice, and I think she's picking it up and running. And so, but just a deep thank you to you. I know it's not always easy, and we were talking earlier on the phone, and it often seems like the more we corrected the books or updated the chart of accounts or tried to onboard onto software that actually worked instead of created problems. It also pointed out a lot of things that we had been doing wrong, but that we were just unaware of because the books were in such a mess. And so your eye for detail and sort of meticulous grind forwardness, I'm not sure if that's a word, really benefited the city. So thank you very much for your service, and hurry up and get the ACFR done. Yep. Councilmember Mosley.
Yeah. As far as the list of items the auditors still needed, they had given us a list, I guess, 2 or 3 months ago. How's that coming along?
They've got some of it I gotta wrap up some pieces on and get to it, so like they want the fixed asset list, I have to make sure all that ties really well into the report that we're preparing too, so some of it will kind of go uploaded to them with the with the draft. There's a few pieces back in February, they said they'd sent some emails out to some city departments and things like that. I'm gonna ask Beatrice to help and kind of get with some of the city departments to make sure that all of that's been followed up on, since I've been kind of a little bit out of the loop the last couple of months.
Okay, yeah, I understood that they couldn't come back in and finalize their field work until they got all that, and that's what you're saying they'll be doing maybe in July, is it?
And,
Okay.
yeah, starting, well, if I get them everything this week and the draft by Monday, then they'll be working on that as well as all of the reviews of the draft. So we send them all the data, they do their field work, and then we prepare this lovely report, and then they spend the time to tick and tie and go through the whole report in fine detail, and then they have their own internal review process where after the team that we work with reviews it, it goes to a reviewer somewhere else in the company that's not part of this team to review all of their work as well as the report. So that's what gives us a little bit of a timeline on between our draft and a final opinion letter.
Give me your perspective, and you've done this before, but I wanted to do it publicly, as far as the ACFR report. It's a very detailed thing, and it seems to be what is dragging us along a lot of times as far as getting yearly finances done and everything. And from what I understand, we don't really have to do that anymore because the bonds that required that have been paid off. And what would be your opinion as far as just going to a more simplified format to where maybe we can stay caught up? And in other words, I believe in doing things as simply as we can, just to speed things along.
So it's actually kind of the opposite story. It seems like simpler report would get us done faster, and it's going to be the opposite. So typically, if we were caught up, not done, we would still be working on wrapping up 2022's ACFR between June and August. They take a good 6 months. There's some of the data that goes into the ACFR from some of the retirement and pension plans that we have to wait for them to do their ACFR before we can do ours. So like LOTFI, the Local Order of Police and Fire, their retirement plan, they're usually not done with their reports until May, June. So for 22, to have everything you need to finish the report, if we were totally on time, we would still be gathering data right now, still looking at about a July, August finish. And that's going to be a typical timeline. They take a good 6 months after. So you can't really close totally until February. And so you're looking at about a 6-month timeline for most cities that are preparing these reports every year. That's about the timeline for completion, which falls in line if you've got a federal compliance audit, it's technically due to the Federal Clearinghouse by September 30th if your fiscal year end is in December. So that's really what your normal timeline is going to look like. If you were to switch with legislative audit, you're closer to that 18-month timeline because they're so bogged down and it takes so long to get them scheduled. So you would be looking at, for 22, hopefully having it done by June of 24. The other side to this, and so while 22 is the last year that our bond documents will require an ACFR, because that's the year that the bonds close out in, when the city goes to refinance, do a new bond issue, et cetera, those bondholders, those people that are investing in the city, like seeing the ACFR. It is a more comprehensive financial report. It takes it to a full accrual basis. It provides all of the statistical data about employers in the city and employment in the city and all of that extra stuff that's not even necessarily about the finances of the city. But that, from what I've been told, is what improves the interest rates and things like that that the city will get on bonds. And so when you look at that aspect of it, ultimately, while it may take a little more time for city staff to put the report together, you're actually going to have relatively timely financial reporting compared to the alternative. And ultimately, it's going to save the city money
Okay, thank you.
in the long term.
That's what you shared with me before, but I wouldn't have been able to repeat that. Thank you.
And that's why I asked her to come answer questions instead of me trying to serve as the.
Well, and it's the reason that the annual comprehensive financial report, when you look at the Government Finance Officers Association nationally, that's why it is the gold standard in reporting, is because it is comprehensive, it is thorough, it is what investors are want to see. They have, if Ms. Sousa ever decides to go down this road, once she's got the ACFR down, they actually have what's called a PAFR now, which is a Public Annual Financial Report, which is like a one-page, maybe two-page with graphic kind of annual summary that is intended more for like the community, just kind of a quick year-end summary. So there's different purposes for different financial reports, and I think that's kind of what you have to remember, is like, what is the purpose of this report? Yes, it's to have the city's books audited and to prevent a year-end financial statement, but it's also to provide that comprehensive look at the city's financial operations and the community's investment in the community. We put in millage stuff from the schools. I mean, there's all sorts of different pieces that come into it that investors want to look at, so.
Okay. Has Ms. Sousa been able to help you at all with that ACFR to where she can feel comfortable doing 2022?
She hasn't, and we didn't even really approach it that way. We approached it more of me trying to get it done. I am trying to write directions as I go, and the software that we purchased to do 18s is one that has connections and formulas and is built out. So the software is built out now, which helps a lot. And I have lots of notes. There's place inside the software where I can put notes, like this number comes from this section of this report from LOPB. That should help the finance team pick them up and work on them from there. And of course, if they get into it and they need help, then I'll certainly do what I can to try to help.
Okay. Now, it seemed like, didn't we hire four of us to help out on 2022 ACFR?
We budgeted for that, but haven't yet decided whether or not we're going to go into that. We're going to have Ms. Sousa, when she gets to the 22 ACFR, really make that determination at that time.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. So this is, so it looks like you're wrapping up all your work this week.
Trying my hardest, yep.
Okay, and you're having to do it in the evening, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I am working full-time, have been since the beginning of March, so.
Okay. I think that's all I've got for you. I wish you well going into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, let me make sure. Hang on. Yeah, you're good. Ms. Sousa, come on down.
Mayor, can you give me the screen? I have my presentation here. So good evening, everybody. And just to clarify what you were talking with Liz, we still have 2 bonds open. And the statements that she's preparing, the book is necessary to have a good grade when we issue the bonds. So it is necessary. So I'm not afraid on this kind of work. You know, I've been in finance all my life. You just need to catch up and organize your work in a form that when the time comes, it's easily done. I mean, it could take 18 months. Yes, it could take 18 months, but don't worry, we will get it done. Okay, so let's go here. Here, as you have the package that I sent to you, and you may have all the detail of the information for the results for this month. In this here, I just made a summary for you. As you can see, in actual revenues, that is this column, this look very lower than the budget revenues. But this is because some of our taxes are collected until March 2023. Also, we collected some franchise fees on a quarterly basis, so they don't appear on a month after month. For instance, we collected franchise fees this quarter from Fidelity and DirecTV as an example. Then let's compare actual revenues besides prior year, and actual revenues look very good. Even they are covering some revenue that we will not have this year. And you may be aware on this because last year, the permit fee for the tractor and supply company was $219,000 because it was based on footage, and we are not going to have that revenue this year. We also collected fees for a large number of industrial remodeling projects, which added a nice increase to planning and permits revenue overall last year that we are not to have this year. Then if we see expenditures versus budget, if you see, they look very low, but this is not like we have to be very happy. What happened is that we have not have a full team in police department, so salaries and benefits are lower. Also, some employee payments will come later in the year, and employee training will come later in the year. If we review the row that says capital expenditures, in here we also have some pending capital expenditures for this year. For example, the reporting software upgrade for the police department, the station alerting upgrade for the fire department, the truck for animal services, equipment for public works, and some parks improvements. So this is in general what we have about the general funds, and I have the same comments here for you. Then if we go to the street fund, in this case, the main observation that I have for you is also that maintenance supplies and capital improvements for the street are coming later on this year. And our director, Mike Hogan, is working already very hard on this to have the work done in the second half of the year. If we go to sanitation fund, also the expenses look lower than the budget. But it's also, we are a little bit delayed because dumpster replacement and vehicle are coming later this year. If we move a little bit, let's talk about now about the finance highlights. That this is really what I like to talk with you as a difference of the regular financials. We have been very busy since last report. We are in the implementation with the UKG for the payroll software. And speaking on Teams, Doreen, I don't know if she's not here. Well, but you know our HR director, she has been working very hard because she's leading this very challenging UKG implementation. So she's working with the different departments for time and attendance, but also she's working with the different teams, benefits implementation, like MedLife, Cigna, everything, because everything will be automatic. So one day we will have very smooth all of this, but today is very challenging. We have to change the starting leave day to July 7, because we run the first testing, it failed, and I don't want to risk that the payroll is incorrectly paid. So we just move the implementation date. Then we talk about reporting OpenGov, and all of this software that I'm talking about, I was talking with Liz because she started all of this. She didn't just have time enough to finalize, but I'm working on that. So as you know, we have been implementing OpenGov program. So we made a very good progress on this, and I wanted to show you. This is just for the benefit of your eyes, that we already have we already issue the first financial statements. I don't know why. Sorry, I don't know why I cannot open it. We already issued the first financial statements directly from the OpenGov system. I don't know why. My computer has been giving me some troubles in Adobe Acrobat, but just want to open my file here. That doesn't open. This one. No, doesn't want to show. Well, I think I'm failing you this time because I wanted to show you this really.
Which part?
It's here and it's my link here. And it's here in Adobe, but doesn't want to open. No, I don't have touching screen.
No, it doesn't want to open.
Mm-mm. Okay.
Let's get out of that. Where's your mouse?
No, doesn't want to open.
Review.
No, it's not. It's this one. Well, sorry about that. Next time I will present to you, but I already issued the first set of financial reports directly from OpenGov. And what I wanted to show you, and I'm going to print it for you to give it, because the format is a little bit different, but it's the same data. But if you like it, I can give the access to the council members to have it online. And I can put to January, to date, and you will have it there on a regular basis. Yeah, I don't know what happened with the system. Well, anyway, talking about payment I'm sorry, I'm going to skip that one because it's too much time. Talking about payment to vendors, as of today, everybody knows that 95% of the transactions made by the city are paid via check, and it is mailed to vendors. We have a bank fraud prevention tool that is called Positive Pay. And unfortunately, it has helped us all to prevent fraud. We have some fraud, but we prevent it. So that was very good. But based on our analysis to reduce the fraud risk, we will implement a policy and procedure to start processing payments via ACH, this is the Accounting Clearing House, for regular vendors. And according with the Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, they recommend that governments have policies and procedures and internal controls in place for each payment method and use electronic means to make payments as often as possible. So we will move in there. I started a little bit with the main vendors, and then we will move little by little with the smaller one. First, the big ones. And the last part that I wanted to talk with you is kind of the transparency that I was talking about. Because as you know, the cash that the city has is held in banks' regular accounts. The bank was paying us a 0.12% annual interest rate, an average $21,000 per year. We reviewed this with the bank, with the account executive, and I'm glad to inform you that he offered us 3% annual rate moving forward. So it is an average of $500,000 a year. Also, the city of Mamel has 14 annual certificates of deposit issued since 2008. And probably you knew about that. I didn't, but I know now. So their current annual interest rate goes from 0.2% to 0.6% for a total of $8,000 a year. So we also made a negotiation, and we have an interest rate of 5.2% for each of them, for a total of $121,000 a year. So all of these changes will generate a considerable increase in interest revenue for the city to cover all the finances expenditures. So, you know, we have had a lot of financial speed. So that's all my presentation. I don't know if you have any doubt or question.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yes, ma'am. Congratulations on those CDs. If I understood it correctly, we were getting paid less than a percent on these CDs, and you renegotiated them up a little bit, and then you are rolling them over at like 5% or 5
Yes,
point?
5.2%
Five
annual
point
rate
two, okay.
for 12 months.
Well, that is a difference of about 80, or about $100,000.
Yes, in this one is $100,000, and the other big difference is in the regular cash that we have as a fund for the city.
Okay. Who is supposed to watch that sort of
The
thing?
finance department.
The finance department is? Okay. I didn't know if that fell under the mayor, the treasurer, or finance department, or what, but.
Well, usually it's a finance task,
Okay.
but considering all the little disorganization that was before, so at least try to catch up with reports and everything, no? And in my case, I have not been involved on the reports. I'm more focusing on deep diving. As I told you, I want to read the data that is there in order that I can give you the data that we have there. So that's why we got here. And with my team, of course, Mary
Okay.
Nelson, our senior accountant that I presented you last time, she's also focused now in the payroll. The payroll is in-house now until we go live on UKG. And both of us, and together with Mary Green, we are reviewing all the data that we have in the financials.
Okay, one last question. On those CDs, you all knew about the CDs, right? The money was accounted for?
Yes,
Okay.
actually, this is what helps us. Because
Okay.
when it is accounted for, you say, what is this, where it is? So I started saying, where are my 2 million, the 2 million. They were laughing about me. Beatrice is looking for 2 million. Yes, I was looking for them. I just wanted to identify where were they. And of course, you found them. You call banks, you make contacts, you analyze the data that is there, and yes, we got it.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure we knew it was there somewhere.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Regularly, what I present is because it's in the data. I'm just reading the data that is there, and if there is some little issue like this, I try to fix it.
Okay, thank you so much, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Any additional comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept the financial report.
Second.
I've got a motion second to accept the financials. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to have all ordinances and resolutions read by title only.
Second.
Got a motion and second. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Motion carries. We have no unfinished business, so we'll move on to new business. The first item of new business is the first reading of ordinance 1090, accepting dedication of streets and drainage. Madam City Clerk, if you could please read that by title only.
Be it enacted by the City Council of the City of Maumelle, County of Pulaski, State of Arkansas, an ordinance to be entitled Ordinance Number 1090, an ordinance accepting and confirming the dedication of certain streets and drainage in a development known as Maumelle Town Center, including Town Center Drive.
Thank you. It's Scott here. Okay, so what ordinance 1090 is Town Center Drive is the drive that connects Maumelle Boulevard to Club Manor. It goes right by Little Caesars. I'm trying to think because not a Splash. No. Anyways, y'all may know that is a private road and has been for a while. Scott and Andrew have done a lot of research on that drive to figure out, and others, as we've been trying to fix or come up with ways to fix some of these private roads, especially in the commercial corridor, that are just falling apart. Andrew said he could talk to it a little bit.
So you'll probably notice this isn't the typical dedication ordinance that you all see. What brought this to Scott's and the city's attention really is that there was a major pothole issue on Town Center Drive. On our records, it showed to be private. We thought it was owned by the immediately adjacent parcel owner, that Little Caesars lot. We pulled the plats, the 1999 plat, which is included here in the packet, and it was filed with a bill of assurance that said that Town Center Drive was dedicated to the public back in 1999. So we looked through ordinances from that time period, and we found no formal acceptance by the city. And as you probably know, drainage and streets, you can't just dedicate it to the city. It has to be accepted by the city council, of course, because all the expense on upkeep that those carry. So we had an intention to have it dedicated in around 1999 when it was replatted. We had a bill of assurance that was half of the bridge. And then we started digging through Scott did all the heavy lifting on this, dug through the planning department's files, found correspondence with the developer at the time saying, here's what you need to do to bring it up to spec, basically. We pulled some other documentation, but for whatever reason, 20 years ago, when apparently everybody, the developer and the city both, intended to have it dedicated, it was never formally dedicated. So I go through I go through all the history in the whereas clauses. In full disclosure, ordinarily when we run dedication ordinances, they will come with caveats that the developer needs to spend the money to bring it up to spec. This developer, it still showed to be on our records, and we believe the county records show that this road is owned by the original developer, which is Phillips Development Corporation. Of course, PDC, Phillips Development, doesn't own anything else. And when we contacted them, of course, they had no idea that they still owned, according to us, they still owned this road. Another thing that is usually present on these is a bond posted by the developer. We found that they did post a bond for drainage and for the street, and for all we know, maybe they did spend money upgrading the drainage structures and the street back in 99, 2000. In my opinion, we can't call on that 20-year-old bond. There is a statute of limitations on bonds. Ordinarily, on this kind of thing, if you think the construction company has not fulfilled its obligations, you have a 2-year period from when they stop working. A 2-year period, I think, is the statute of limitations that would apply. So I don't think we would have a legal basis to call on their bond. And the more important thing, the reason that Scott and I are asking the mayor and asking the council to take this is that we have a dire need to get this road up to shape. We have residents driving on it every single day. The planning department gets complaints all the time. I think right now there's just a cone in the middle of the pothole, and it needs to be taken care of. And this is the quickest way to do that. So, as I said, you might be wondering, okay, well, what are we doing differently now so that 20 years from today, the next city council, well, we run the dedication ordinances when the plats are adopted, when they're accepted. So I think at the next council meeting, I'll have a proposed ordinance that will amend on a development that the council approved at the last meeting. So we're putting it all at the front end to make sure we catch these things. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. I was hopeful Mr. Grummer might be here, but he's not here. But he did a lot of heavy lifting on this. And we do have a formal letter from PDC, of course, asking us to formally dedicate the street. I'm sure they don't have any objection, so they don't have any objection to it.
Councilmember Tierney?
Yes, and concerns of the public safety matter that this creates, and also the fact that there's no public objection on this matter. It's something that needs to be done. What about us fast-tracking this and go ahead and running through the different readings tonight? Get this thing going.
Certainly, if the council wants to do that.
I'd like to make that proposal.
Well, by proposal, do you mean a motion?
Yes, I'd like to
To
make that
waive
motion.
the. Okay. Got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion to waive the second and third reading requirements and have them read tonight? Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I'd rather go through the three readings just because this is kind of a complex issue. I hadn't had a chance to really get my head into it. Just enough to follow what City Attorney Thornton said. I do have some questions for him on this, and so I would prefer that we not do that. Just go ahead and this is a fairly complicated matter, and I think we ought to give it three readings.
Councilmember Mazzoni?
Do you have a cost estimate on how much repairs will cost to get it up to speed?
No.
We've asked Mike Hogan to look at it, give us his thoughts. I don't think he's ready yet.
Okay, would it be ready for the next reading?
Is he? He's not here. Oh, is he here? Yeah, there he is.
Mike Hogan, 600 Cogdale Drive, Public Works. There hasn't been any cost estimate done. I haven't had a chance to look at the storm drains or the roads, so it does concern me before this gets pushed through to kind of get a cost estimate to see what the budget is this year, because I know if it gets approved, I'll be getting a call. So I would like to inspect the drainage to see what we're going to take over. As far as the pothole, we could probably fix that fairly cheap, but yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Mazzoni?
Yeah, is there any way to fix the one pothole without it? Are we allowed to do that, or since it's not ours, we're not even allowed to touch that? Or is
Yeah,
that
we're not allowed to fix the pothole any more than we could fix your driveway right now.
you could.
Well, we're definitely not fixing mine. There's plenty of mayors serving jail time
Okay.
for.
No, we don't wanna do
sort of
that.
stuff. Yeah, no, so we are prohibited from doing that. It's actually, we have to bend over backwards to find ways to allow us to either repair, accept dedication of old roads, or we have to pursue getting the actual property owners to make the repairs. In some cases, it's a business interest 20 years later that has no vested interest in the area any longer, and there's just very little way to enforce that. So no, otherwise all those potholes on Savannah that people just go out and fill with, we could take care of those very easily. We cannot take care of those until we have the ability to do so. Thank you, Mike. So I've got a motion and a second on the floor to waive the second and third readings and have those both tonight. Any additional discussion on that motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, the Public Works Director would also kind of like to slow this thing down so he can get some figures and that sort of thing. So I really do think we ought to keep this on its regular track. Thank you.
Councilmember Shin?
I'll withdraw my second after hearing from Mike.
We have a withdrawn second, just a motion to waive the second and third reading requirements. Do I hear a second on that motion? Motion fails for lack of a second. Is there any discussion on ordinance 1090? Councilmember Mosley?
Yes. Are the streets, is that street up to code now? Is it, was it built within code at the time and in code now, as far as width and all that sort of thing?
We'd have Mr. Hogan get back to you with that. It was intended to be dedicated at that time. We even have ordinances that say that. I think, though, that one of the issues were at the time, and Hogan's been here so long, he might have been working on this street back then. Our understanding is that the city had requested the developer to make certain improvements to it before we accepted dedication. That never happened. and then we never accepted dedication, maybe because of that. It gets gray in that area. But Scott is the one who has become the research guru on tracking this stuff down, and it becomes quite exhaustive.
Okay. I've got another question, if I can go proceed. Wanted to check and see ask the city attorney if he thinks this will lead to others coming in wanting to do the same thing. I always worry about setting a precedent for either these there's several of these private streets, I think, they're in that town center area. And then there's a lot of private drives and things like that, so I just want to make sure we aren't opening a can of worms here.
No, there's no legal precedent in the sense that if you accept dedication of Town Center Drive, therefore anyone who comes into the city council and asks you to accept dedication, you have to. It's not like that. City council can say yes or no, and as long as it's for a proper reason or, you know, a real reason, then that's fine. I think I mentioned at the last meeting, it's a kind of a longer term project of Scott's to get the business owners in the town center area to take that whole stream of private roads and at some point in the future get them public. It's a long-term kind of project of Scott's.
Okay.
But no, it wouldn't set any kind of legal precedent that you would be forced to accept dedication of anybody who walks in the door.
All right. Thank you. That's all I've got.
One of the main reasons we proceeded with this one and maybe not others is this one actually fits a little bit more like the Garden Oaks alleys. For those that were on the city council or with the city back when we worked to turn those from a private alleyway to a public alley. The documentation and the records at that time showed that the intent was to dedicate. Same thing with some of the bills of assurances, and I think one of the plats that was recorded on Garden Oaks Alley actually said that it was to be dedicated to the city. As the city attorney was saying, that's a two-step process. It has to be dedicated to the city, and then with streets and alleys and like, the council has to accept that by an ordinance. So this one, we had that first mover action that showed that there was an intent to make it public, and even some recognition by the city at the time, by that ordinance that's attached in here, that the city had intended to, in the future, accept dedication of it. So this one kind of is different than some of the other ones that we've been looking at. And in some of those, it may be that we have to get the business owners or property owners in that area to make improvements to the road until it's at a sufficient condition to where we can accept it. So that's how we've kind of been looking at those. We've also have a few other areas that are residential roads that are private, that we're in discussions with them because they want the city to take over dedication and maintenance of the streets and drainage, but because the same sort of facts are different, you know, it's not that same intent to dedicate and then the city not accepting dedication. Rather, in those, it appears the intent was specifically to keep it private. We're working with those property owners or property owners associations to make the improvements themselves and then bring it to the city to accept dedication. So to add additional information there. Anyways, ordinance 1090 is on first reading and will be on second reading at the next city council if there's no further discussion. Seeing none, we will move on to the next item of business, which is the Crystal Hill Road discussion. Councilmember Mosley, this was, you requested that this be here. Just a heads up, I do have public comment cards. Traditionally, after the ordinance or a resolution is read, we typically first call on public. This is a little bit different that there's not a public comment, so I'll leave it to you or the council to determine if you want to jump right into the public comment cards or you want to explain why this is here, or. how you'd like to do that, sir.
Yeah, I think it's here because the residents down that live in the vicinity of Crystal Hill Road have been very, very patient through the years, and they are again interested in when this thing's going to be finished. And so I would like to go ahead and do public comment first on this, and then we'll go into discussion.
Certainly, I've got numerous public comment cards. We can go down the list in the order that I have them here. Y'all will have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record. First individual and the winner of the Go First prize is Walter Pace. Mr. Pace, come on down. If you could please state your name and address for the record.
Mr. Mayor and Council. Name Walter Page, 25023 Highway 365 North Maumelle, pastor of Pleasant Hill Missionary Baptist Church down here. I have a couple of things here that I would like to say right quick. I have 3 minutes. Okay, I would like to know, first of all, if money was allocated for the Crystal Hill Road Street, why is so much that was spent on the Count Massey Road? Down on that end down there where it's not really anyone, we really need it down on the main road down there. And that Count Massey Road wasn't in too bad a shape, but down where we were, it's been real bad all the time. And what is the Maumelle planning to do about the situation that's going on there as far as getting the road taken care of? And I would like to know, do you have a contractor on the project at the present? If not, what is going to happen about the work that's supposed to be going on? It's been going on for years now, and we've been putting up with it quite a bit. And I understand it just might be that I just heard it from someone that there's not enough money, that the money has been spent. And so if there's not enough money now, who's going to take care of that area in there? Because it is getting sort of ridiculous. Okay, does Maumelle plan to provide, to continue to lead the road with gravel, dust, mud, water wash, and there's potholes in the gravel already? I came through that day, my truck almost jumped off the road. And that's not, and you know, that's not even with the pavement on it yet. In fact, I was standing out there, I was checking something so I could get ready for this meeting, and a truck came through there, and he made so much dust until I couldn't hardly see the truck when it went past me. It looked almost like a desert windstorm coming through there. It is getting ridiculous. And in fact, my wife, I'm gonna get personal. My wife just got a car, and we drove it down there. And I tell you, one time I had to go wash it. I had to go wash because you can't even hardly tell what color it was. There's so much dust flying now when we go down through there, and especially on Sunday. We have people coming in with their cars nice, and they're nice, and they don't want dust flying all over them. In fact, I can tell you right now, if I'd stayed out there, I'd have to take a bath before I got here today. That road is so dusty. It is really ridiculous. But, and I was wondering about the way the road is built, but I talked to someone a few minutes ago, and he explained to me a little more about it. But also I want to know why, since y'all came in with the double lane and came down to one, why you made that one so narrow? I can tell you right now, if a person comes down through there, the road is real narrow in there for some reason. And in fact, I finally met someone one day just seeing. You don't have a whole lot of room. You can't stick your arm out if you pass someone. Okay, another thing, is there a special reason why it was not paved down there in that area? From right there, going past the church on down, there isn't anything but gravel. And it's always been a problem, and it still have potholes in what is there, the asphalt that is there. And I think in one of the meetings, I was here once before for something, and I asked about cement stabilization. I tell you, I did a job, I worked with a job where you had to do cement stabilization because you're close to the river. And if you don't do that, you're going to have potholes. And I know the government spent a lot of money on that because I was involved in it, but without that cement stabilization, it's going to be potholes in there. And my other problem is I need to find out who we can call, because as soon as y'all put it, in fact, it's already doing it. When potholes come in there, who would we call to see about getting them filled? Because in the past, those potholes almost been tearing up our cars when we try to get out of there and coming in, because they get so deep and you keep calling people. They eventually come and go ahead and do it, but we need to have someone that we can call or talk to because of those potholes.
Thank you, Mr. Pace.
Okay, thank you.
And we do have the project engineer here who can answer some questions at the end, and then there may be some that I can address also at the end and during discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin McWilliams. Mr. McWilliams, how are you?
Good. Mr.
Can you
Mayor
please state your
and
name and
council,
address for the record?
Kevin McWilliams, I reside at 10610 Crystal Hill Road and have since '88. We've been through a lot of stuff down in that part of the city through the years, and unfortunately, it's made us all too familiar with these chambers and dealing with the council, and appreciate all the help that the city has afforded us in fighting some bad things that were trying to take place with Jeffrey Sand and Gravel through the years. The situation with this road at this point, though, we've tried to be patient, but things seem to have stopped. And I'm not going to go back through the dust thing, but it is terrible. You can have an inch of rain at night, and by the next afternoon, the dust is back up again. It's starting to affect our sinuses, our health. You can't spend time outside. We like to cook out. You can't do it. Everything is just nothing but solid dust. And also would like to understand why there were changes made to the actual design of the road that was supposed to have the road split or divided further east, and then suddenly at Count Massey went over to or shifted over to a single lane or the way it has at this point. It really looks ludicrous. I hope that their intentions when City of North Little Rock figures out how they're going to do their part of the project to bring it up to the collector street design, that will go ahead and be improved at that time. But we just don't know. We can't get answers, and that's all we're asking, is what's going on, what's going to happen from here, and when can we expect it to be completed?
Thank you, sir. Next up is Janet Watkins. If you could please state your name and address for the record, ma'am.
My name is Janet Watkins. I live at 11400 Crystal Hill Road, and I have been there in excess of 50 years. So I've been in here more than once. Most of you know who I am. We had just reached the point where our patience is gone, and it's time to get something done and get this road fixed. You can see if you put us at the end of the line, there's so many people in here. I don't think anybody's got them going home. So we've sat through the whole meeting just to get to discuss this. In 2012, a bond issue was appropriated, voted on. I have a copy of the bond issue if anybody wants to read it. And it was, money was set aside for this project. Well, then I also have a invitation here to the groundbreaking, which I was privileged to go to and even got to shovel in the dirt. And I can't find it in my stack of papers right this minute. But anyway, the date on it was October 1st, and it will be 3 years this October. Now, we're talking already, the bond issue was for $3.2 million. And right now, the best figures we can get, there is left only $365,311.15. So over $3 million has been spent on this road, guys. And it's bad. I'd like to ask, how many of y'all have driven down there lately to see it? I appreciate the ones that have. Just in case, you haven't seen it, I brought some of our pavement. And I didn't dig anything. This is what it's doing. It's just chunking up in big chunks. And, you know, I could have brought enough pieces to give everybody one for a souvenir, but I couldn't carry them in the building. So anyway, I'm gonna leave this and let y'all take a look at it. It was supposed to have been 2 inches thick, from what I understand. It's not. It's crumbling up. It's doing what they call alligatoring. It's all just cracking up, and then you can come along in the cracks and the potholes, and you can pick up chunks of it. And so I have asked over and over and over who's responsible for this road project. The mayor tells me he is. And so I am here tonight to hold you responsible. And we've got representatives from everybody all up and down the road. I'm amazed at the people that turned out. We've got residents of Maumelle that just care because it seems like all this tax money is wasted, and we still don't have a road. And the road stopped. I want to know why it was stopped. I want to know when it's going to be finished. I want to know what it'll cost to finish it, because I think this $365,000 is not going to go very far, guys. I don't know what asphalt costs, but I do know a 2x4 cost over $10. It did a few weeks ago, and they used to be $1.25. So I don't think that's enough money. I want to know how it's going to get finished. I'm planning to live there the rest of my life, and I'd like to see it finished in my lifetime. So you better hurry, because I'm 76 years old. And the removal and the replacement of this bad asphalt, there's 2 stretches. One is up Count Massey, the other one is between Count Massey and my house. And it's just a mess. You can bust a windshield. Do you think that wouldn't bust a windshield if I picked it up and throw it? You know, it would break out anything. Well, we have semis coming down there. Today I counted 10 big semis. Sometimes they come up the wrong lane. We have no signage. We have no marker. What's down there, North Little Rock put up, because Riverbend, our neighbors, is actually a little section that is in North Little Rock, and the mayor of North Little Rock got signs, stop signs, and a couple of 3 speed limit signs, and was even kind enough to mark my driveway, because I'd come in at night. We don't have a street light down there. They took them all down, of course, for the building project, and they were kind enough to mark my driveway, so at least now I can find my driveway. I can't tell you how many times I went past it and had to back up and find the driveway.
Thank you, Ms. Watkins. Next up is W.M. Paul Wilson. If you could please state your name and address for the record, sir.
Yes, sir. William Paul Wilson. I'm Secretary of Bendemeer Grotto, 10850 Crystal Hill Road. As far as comments, I don't have any. Just the questions is, why did we change the plans for the section of road that we're talking of now? Because we attended the planning meetings that were held. The gentleman previously said the road is narrow. If you have 2 of these commercial trucks come by, somebody's probably going to leave a set of mirrors on the road. It's narrow. Those of you that have been down there, it is a narrow 2-lane. Right now, if it continues like it is with the same guttering or curbing, if somebody has a flat, breaks down, you're going to have a big traffic problem right there, because there's nowhere to go. We want to know, just as the other people have spoken, when is it going to be completed? It is extremely rough. Those of you that have been on the road know it is. The dust, we used to talk about it. We told folks to come out and visit. We're a fraternal organization. Come out and get a good view of the river. You're not seeing the river now, because the car goes down at a decent speed, and we have some go down that road. I don't know how they do it. They must have extremely good shocks, because it is a rough, rough drive. But we feel like we look right up the road, and here's this very nice boulevard, and we look in front of our places, and we from Arkansas, folks, we just right here on this gravel road, and we just going to be right here. And that's not Maumelle. We all know that. Because I'm not a resident of Maumelle. Again, I'm secretary for our organization. Maumelle is a jewel, except for a little stretch of road that really, really needs some attention. And we would sincerely appreciate it being taken care of. And if you need things that y'all could answer as far as timeline, so I can go back to my guys and tell them, I would appreciate.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up is Karen Gray. If you could please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, I'm Karen Gray. My address is 25021 Highway 365 North, right outside Maumelle here. And my interest in the road is, I attend the church there, Pleasant Hill Missionary Baptist Church there, along that little stretch there that's not paved. And I'm the treasurer there at the church, so I'm there in and out quite a bit. And the main thing I want to talk about, which everyone has already kind of mentioned it, but I think it bears repeating, is the safety right there in that little area. When I'm going there to do some work at the church and I see another car meeting me, I will sit back on the paved part right there at Count Massey and wait for them to pass through. Some of them are driving so fast till it's just throwing up gravels and everything, and I'm afraid it's gonna break the windshield in my car. And one reason why I'm skittish about that, I just had it repaired, $2,000 just to repair the windshield on my car. And all that gravel in there, at one point, when they started paving on the road again, I said, oh, that's good. Okay, and then it was something they put down, I don't know exactly what it was. It almost looked like a form of asphalt. And you could drive on that pretty well. But then they put that gravel on top of it. And that just made the driving worse. It gets all in your tires, you know, and everything. And the potholes they talk about that's in the road there, it's kind of strange to me. It's not really, the potholes I've seen are not really in the part where you drive. It's right along the edge where the curves are. And I'm wondering, how are they getting over there when there's not anybody driving over in that part? So I don't know, whoever put it down, I don't know what they did to it, but it's starting to sink there in the areas where you don't even drive in. And I wrote some notes here so I wouldn't be too long up here. But the main thing, that's just the main thing, it's just unsafe going through that area now. And there's, like they're saying, that piece right there in front of the church is so narrow. You know, you're just afraid to drive through there. I'm just afraid to drive through there with someone else meeting me. You know, I don't think it's safe there. And we have, with our church on Sundays, we haven't really started back during the week like we had been since COVID. But on Sundays, you know, you're having people coming in and out there, the traffic speeding through there. We're just afraid someone is going to get hurt there eventually if something is not done with the road. Now, if there's not going to be anything done soon, if they would at least remove that gravel and put something there that we can drive on, that would be better, you know, until, you know, it can be put into a safe condition. If you all would think on that, at least, if they're not going to do anything soon with the, you know, paving it or anything, but we would prefer that it's paved. But we would take a better condition if we could get it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Lori and Bob Osborne, one or both? Come on down. Name and address for the record, please.
Laurie Osborne, 11511 Crystal Bay Circle, which is right across, it's right on Crystal Hill Road. Right across the street is 13 acres of Bob and I's land that we donated that quarter of a mile for the road, whatever was needed. Is 10 feet in for the bicycle path and the road. So I have two questions. The first question I have is, why isn't there a bicycle path? And if that's going to be put in. And the second question concerns our fence. So we had a fence that ran along there, and we always assumed that the fence would be put back. So the contractor started putting the fence back, but they're short about 300 feet of completing it. And when we asked him about it last week or maybe 2 weeks ago, he said that the mayor said to stop putting back the fence, and that if he put back any more fence, that the city of Maumelle wasn't going to pay for it. So our question is, are we going to get our fence put back the way it was? We had a quote from a fence company, Bill's Fence Company, for $7,990 to put back the fence just the way it was, the 298 feet, and to repair where the gate was. So that's my question, is whose responsibility is that to pay for that fence? And is there going to be a bicycle path? Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Lipscomb. Did they save the best for last?
I don't know, we'll see. I'll be short. Tim Lipscomb, 11567 Crystal Bay Circle, North Little Rock, Arkansas. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for hearing our concerns this evening. I'm sure y'all have heard this a lot over the years, but hopefully it'll be finished soon. I'm speaking for the Riverbend community, which is located across, right up the street on the north side of the road from Park on the River. There's about 30 families in that community. We live in North Little Rock, so we're not really, or technically, voting citizens of Maumelle. However, we do shop almost exclusively in Maumelle for groceries, medical services, dentists, veterinarians, you name it, gas, those type things. So we do contribute to the tax base here quite a bit. We had hopes that our access road to Maumelle would be completed quickly and expeditiously. That has not happened. And we're concerned because there are some reports in the council minutes that the road is complete. However, that's not true. There's weeds growing on both sides of the road in the median. Potholes are appearing in the asphalt. Mud's washing out into the street. There's no directional stripes or safety stripes on the road. We are grateful for what you all have done. I know it's been probably unpleasant for much of the time for you as well. But we would like to see the road completed with better traffic control, directional stripes, signs, and other safety measures. And we would like to see the median finished. Many of our residents have met with the mayor and mayor staff offering our services to do research on planting material that'll go in the median, what'll grow there, because medians are horrendously difficult places to grow landscaping because of exhaust fumes and heat and no irrigation and that type thing. So we do have that lined up and ready to go if you should be interested in that. So one of our major concerns, during construction, hundreds of feet of our irrigation system was ripped out along the road. The first bid we got 18 months ago was around $6,000 to fix that. Now it's up to $8,000. I'm thinking it's not going to get any less. And our questions are, will that irrigation be put back as it was before you all started the road? Will the median be landscaped and irrigated? And what role, if any, does North Little Rock have in this project? Because it appears from the plat maps that the boundary between the two cities run up the middle of the road. It's pretty obvious that the city of Maumelle is having some struggles with this road project. I've heard from reliable sources that the North Little Rock mayor is ready to assist if asked. So I don't know if that's an option or not, but at least that's what we're understanding. I know that they did help put up speed signs and directional signs and those type things. So we would like to have our sprinkler put back as it was. We would like to have some safety measures implemented along the road. The mud off the street, the potholes fixed, and basically the road complete. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That concludes the public comments. Councilmember Mosley?
Yes. Yes, sir. At this point, I would appreciate it if the mayor and perhaps All the Way Engineering representative could answer some of these questions and give us a status report on the road and just continue discussion here and hopefully satisfy everybody's concerns and answer everybody's questions. And I don't care who goes first or if you guys go together. Let's go right ahead.
Roy? Andrews, please state your name.
Roy Andrews, 200 Casey Drive. I'll try to answer as many as I can. Contractor has not left the project. Contractor is still on the project. That's Boyles Construction. The subcontractor, Cranford, is tentatively set to mobilize and pave the early part of next week and get the asphalt put down on that last portion. Street width is a city street. We did narrow up that section for a couple of reasons. One of those reasons was due to higher prices since COVID and a few other things going on. Prices have gone up, and so we looked at narrowing that street width from the lane that had a median with a drive lane and a bike lane down to just two standard city street lanes, one lane in each direction, and then moving that bike path off to the side outside of the roadway for that last section, which it actually does up closer to the bank at the other end, Park on the River back to the boulevard. The bike path will actually be on the side of the road. It won't be in the drive lane. But for between Counts Massey and Park on the River, the bike lane will be in the outside of the drive lane. You'll have a drive lane towards the median, you'll have a stripe, and then you'll have the bike lane. But this portion we did narrow back up to a standard street width, move the bike lane out of the street, which concurrently is what the city of North Little Rock is planning to do with Crystal Hill back to the boulevard. They have already started that design process, so this section will match what City of North Little Rock is planning to do. So it just happened to work out that it would meet that plan and Metro plan with the Central Arkansas Regional Greenway plan, moving the trail system. They would prefer that the trails be outside of the roadway and not adjacent to the traveled way. The fence, we are working with the contractor to get that last section of fence put up. He is short on what was taken down and needs to finish putting up the rest of that white fence. Potholes, when Cranford shows up next week, Boyles will get in and excavate that out, and those potholes will be fixed. They just haven't come back yet. They haven't mobilized, and so they're aware of the potholes.
You're talking about the potholes in the gravel?
The potholes in the gravel will be fixed with gravel, but then the potholes in the roadway, those will be fixed also. I think that was most of the questions.
So one of the questions was, who do you call for the potholes? While the project's still ongoing, that'll be handled through the contractor, but we're not having folks call the contractor, are we?
No, they would just notify the city, and then
okay.
we would notify
So
the
you
contractor.
contact the city of Maumelle for all the potholes, including any of them that are in the North Little Rock portion. There was questions about why the work has stopped after we laid the gravel down.
Just contractor trying to coordinate with Cranford, the subcontractor that lays asphalt, to get them out. And they've been busy on some other projects and not been able to mobilize and get on site.
There was questions about why the plans had changed. I want to, and some of these questions I'm asking, I know the answer to, but you say them so much more eloquently, and those so one of the reasons we went back down to a more narrow road without the center median, amusingly, Benjamin Grotto, sir, I forget your name, you asked why we got rid of the median. When the discussion about the median removal came up, I was thrilled because I knew how much Benjamin Grotto had fought against the median. And so there were several reasons for that. One was North Little Rock is continuing that project. You all may recall that the road was originally designed with a 4-lane road and an off-street path. We shifted that to a 2-lane road with a median to address some of the concerns from the residents in that area that didn't want the 4-lane road. We then put the bike paths in the road, which was it seemed to fit what we were looking for in the city at that time. Since then, MetroPlan came out with the regional greenway system that runs that trail right down that area, and the standard there is the side path. So we came back to the city council for the part closest, basically between Park on the River and First Security, and we moved bike lanes out and we added that side path there. North Little Rock was adding a side path at that intersection we thought was basically a good opportunity to merge our roadway up with what North Little Rock was planning in those terms. Also, we were one of the overages that we've run into, and one of the big problems with this project is the amount of cut needed and the bad base. By shifting to this design, and correct me if I say anything
You're
wrong,
correct.
please. By shifting to this design, it allowed us to not have to cut that out, which is where we were running into a lot of the problems. As we cut the roadway and the base out and went into the whatever's
Existing subgrade.
there you go, the existing subgrade is where we were having to just dig and dig and dig, and y'all saw the holes that were out there, these massive holes that we were just digging. They'd fill with water, the project would get delayed, we'd have to wait for it to get dry, we'd spend extra money on cut, extra money on fill, and just to stabilize that roadway. One of the ways, by shifting to this design, we were able to keep that subgrade, keep that road, and then just enhance it and use that existing roadway as sort of the core of the base that we built on top of it at that point. And so somebody mentioned that we laid stuff, I don't even know what that is, the sealant before the gravel, and that was sort of us building.
We were using the existing asphalt roadway as our base, and we built back on top of that.
Down in that area. And so one of the things that I've talked about this entire time with this project is that we were gonna keep it in budget. This project probably could have moved faster if we just threw more money at it. It was a 7-year-old project, a 6-year-old project. The money, there was a gentleman that asked about why some of the plans were, or why it only continued to this point and that point. I couldn't tell you. I've been mayor now for 4.5 years, city attorney for 4 years, city council for 2 years, and this project predated my time on the city council. I don't know what the considerations were for how they chose what areas they were going to choose and which they didn't. We've just worked within the existing area that the bond authorized us to work into. So that I think that covers some of the explanation for the plan changes. There was a question about when it'll be finished. We're hoping they'll lay asphalt on
That they'll be
next
laying
week.
the asphalt next week, and then they'll be able to come in and get the striping done.
So we've got they're just laying the asphalt down there. They're not doing the pathway.
It'll depend upon the weather, if it's
Okay.
dry enough. If it
Okay.
stays like it is, it'll be dry enough to do the pass, yes.
And that's one of the
Side
things I
path.
wanted to bring up is we have concerns about, for that path, the asphalt side path, where there was also a question is about whether there will be a side path. For the portion where the median is, there's bike lanes on both sides. For both of the ends, that's closest to Maumelle Boulevard and closest to North Little Rock, those will be side path areas. So you'll effectively go side path into bike lanes and then back into side path at the other end. What can we do about dust, other than lay that asphalt down?
Yes, I'll get with the contractor and see if there's something he can do.
There were concerns about the, there were two questions, one about the fence. I've never told anyone not to repair a fence. In fact, as soon as the Osbornes I know called my office and we heard word that I had told the contractor to stop work, I immediately emailed Roy and said, who is saying this? Because I get enough flack on the project for stuff I do to not get it for stuff I don't do. Any damage, and this includes Riverbend, whatever irrigation we tore up, I thought that had been taken care of, but to anyone's property that we have damaged, we will make whole. The only two things that I'm aware of, other than just the stuff we plan to automatically repair, is the fence and the irrigation system at Riverbend. So if the city has done any damage to property other than that, please let my office know, let Roy know. I'm not aware of it. If there are, you may have let the contractors know. I don't have that information. So any damage that has been done to your property by the city's project will be repaired, as is standard whenever we do a construction project anywhere.
I would add, while you're looking at your notes, so reaching out to some of the other surrounding cities, since with COVID and the unprecedented time, I know we're kind of past COVID, but we're still seeing really the fallout from it, shortage of materials still. Y'all see me here a lot. We do quite a bit of design work in Maumelle and Central Arkansas, and every project we have, subdivision-wise, site design is behind, that has been going on easily 6 months behind due to materials. We're seeing cost overruns due to price of materials. Doesn't matter if you have a contract. We've seen increases, and reaching out to some of the surrounding cities, they're outright just paying the contractor more money to keep schedules met and to keep the project intact. And we worked hard. There was a little bit of a delay that we worked to redesign the project to try to keep it in budget and not go over that budget and cost more money. And so the city, working with the mayor and working with Public Works Department, have done well to try to keep that moving forward.
Anything else jump out to you? I've got some buttons.
Nope.
Buttons. Councilmember Grunwald.
Okay, goodness. I wrote everybody's names down and tried to follow everybody's comments and listen to everything that you said. I'm trying to follow this because it predates my time even living in Maumelle. Because it sounds like if I did the math right, it's been going on for 10 or 11 years. Is that accurate?
2012.
The bonds were passed in October of 2012.
And we didn't start the project until...
The project was engineered originally during Mayor Watson's time. I believe for one reason or another that project got tabled and focus was put on other city bond projects. When I came in, we began the re-engineering of it, primarily re-engineering to address some of the concerns that I had heard from folks in that area. And so we began the re-engineering in early, probably spring of 2019.
Okay. So I heard you say that we're going to lay asphalt next week.
Yes, that's the plan.
For the project completion, for everything to be done, the bike pathways, irrigation, fences to be put back the way they were, for everything, for you to sign off on it?
I don't have a date from the contractor on that.
Okay. This year? Would you?
Yeah, yes, I surely hope so.
Okay. Well, that's something to look forward to. And I do know, and I've kind of followed this, I understand that for the past at least 3-4 years, with, like you said, with COVID and the materials being harder to get, more expensive, things like that, that's been a challenge for everybody. So, was that my only question? Yes, that's my only question. So, I feel for all of the residents, I really do, but it sounds like there is light at the end of the tunnel. I would mention, Mayor, back me up on this. if there is a pothole or something, I always like to tell people about the C-Click fix. Is that an appropriate?
It is, this one might be a
For
little
them?
bit different while the project is ongoing. C-Click Fix Works, that gets to Public Works, also. But,
Okay.
at most of the potholes we're aware of pretty quick because we're down there all the time. If it becomes more important once that project wraps up and we're not out there all the time to notify us there's a warranty on the road for a little
Yes.
while, so to speak. And so we want to find everything that's wrong, and some of it is very obvious, while we're still in that time frame. So yes, C-Click Fix works, phone calls work, as far as notifying us. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That, I don't know if everybody knows about that, but it's an app. So it's just another outlet for you to contact people regardless of whatever you see, not just there, but anywhere else in the city. So I like to tell people about that as well, but thank you.
Councilmember Holt?
Scribble down a bunch of questions. One of the first things that you said that we are working with our contractors. What does that mean? That you're working with them? What?
To try to get them to finish the project and get the deficiencies corrected. Get the fence done, get the irrigation fixed. I thought the irrigation had been fixed as well, and so I will reach out to them tomorrow to get on that.
This, if I heard this right a few minutes ago, this started in 2012, is that right, Mr. Mayor? Is that what you said?
That's when it was voted on at the bond, yeah.
This was about a $12 million bond, is that correct also?
No, it was
3.2.
3.2.
How much?
Sounds right. 3.2.
3.2, I'm sorry. I have hearing aids, but anyway, I'm sorry. If you have to repeat it, I apologize. Is there not a financial breakdown as to how much money was spent and when? I mean, somebody asked a while ago
Yes, sir.
about where'd all the money go?
Yes, there's.
Ms. Watkins, I bet, has every single
Maybe
thing.
I should be speaking with her.
Yeah, and you can get it from us as well. It's all there.
If you'll forgive, well, I'm not going to ask to be forgiven. I don't hear a sense of urgency about this. Now, we've got all these folks out here, and their homes are being affected about this. And I'm just not hearing any urgency. We seem to be, if you want to get mad at me, it's okay. I don't care. I'm going to get paid for it. But we're pretty calm about this. And I don't understand how come, Mr. Mayor, that we don't, why aren't you, people that's in charge, why aren't you pounding your fist on the table as to whoever is supposed to get this done? Now, you just got through saying that every project that we have, we're behind on all of them. How come is that? I mean, is there too many projects? I mean, I'm serious. I mean, we have people out here and their homes are being affected, and frankly, it doesn't sound like anybody gives a you know what. So, it's my job to ask the questions, and I don't have to be a diplomat. I'm not going to be saying anything undignified, but listening to this, I'm angry, and I'm not even involved in it. I live on the northeast side of town. Is there anything? What is it that's going on right now? It says what ongoing there is. Is there anything actually going on right now, or are we just sort of sitting there?
No, other than what we just explained, you mean?
Is there a contractor out there? Are we physically doing something right now?
The answer is yes. If you want to be upset and holler at someone, please don't do it at the engineer. You're welcome to holler at me, right? We've hired them to do work, and at this point, I think they've been doing it free for quite a while, because it's taken so long. So like we just said, I had a meeting in here about a week ago with numerous contractors asphalt folks, all of whom were insisting that we pay the unit price for asphalt that we have in the contract is, do you recall off the top of your head? And they're wanting $153. So they continue to come in and say things like, we need more money for the asphalt because the price of asphalt when we entered into the contract was this and now it's that. So we have very little that I can do to twist their arm and drag them out there to pour the asphalt right now, short of doing what Roy said, which is what our competitors are doing in the private sector and even some public sector projects that have excess money, which is you just pay them more money and then they get out there, right? And so the fact is that what we are doing is not screaming and shouting in a city council meeting, because that doesn't do any good. The people that we're having disagreements with, some of which I have explained to the city council time and time again, those are the folks that we are having disagreements with, to the point apparently they're telling people I've told them to stop working on fences. I don't know what to say about that. But they're supposed to be out there laying asphalt. This is something that is ongoing in a battle that we just don't have a ton of leverage on, right? I don't have the money to throw at the project. I've said at the beginning, we had the budget that we had, and we're using 2012 money to build the road in 2023, in 2021 or 2020, basically, when we got started on that. And look at any of the other projects that we've engineered, and even over the course of a year or two, the project prices have gone up exponentially, right? And so if you're an asphalt company selling asphalt to a subcontractor, to a contractor who's all working on a budget from 2020, and that asphalt is sitting there in your trucks, and you can sell it to us for $100, I don't know what the number was, $100, or you can sell it to them for $150. How often do you think they put us at the top of the line? Not very often, right? So these are the things that we are contending with there, and that's just one element. So sorry to I know it doesn't get seen, and we don't run in here and talk about all the disagreements that we're having with contractors or the troubles that we're doing in order to keep the project in budget. I don't expect any one of y'all to like me. I wouldn't like me if I was you, because this project has gone on too long. It has been too disturbing. Ironically, I think a lot of those problems were caused probably by me trying to be as accommodating as possible, having engineers come back in, reshift the focus over here, reshift the focus here. Let's work on this. How do we help these folks over here? How do we hurry up and get this paved instead of using the phasing plan that was originally engineered, because I was trying to accommodate folks? It's just become a jumbled mess, right? It's proceeding as much as we can within the budget. If you guys want to throw more money, I can get asphalt maybe out there tomorrow. I don't know, right? You guys want to throw in a couple $100 extra grand, I bet you I can get asphalt this week.
I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. When we let the contract was signed and agreed that a certain amount of work and project would get done at this price. Am I mistaken on that?
No, you're correct on that.
So, somehow or another, that didn't happen. It doesn't sound like. I don't know how many, have we had an evaluation as to what it's gonna cost to complete everything? We're out of money at this point,
No,
basically.
sir, we have the money to complete the project.
The money is there?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I'm just asking, Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
no offense intended, because I'm not been watching this, but I would like to know in their behalf if there is anything that they can go home tonight and say, well, we feel good that they're going to do something at some point in time. Can any of that be answered?
Short of saying that the plan is to pour asphalt next week, which you'll have all the asphalt on the road down next week, and quite frankly, if I was them, I wouldn't believe me either, right? I mean, It's not within my control, actually, of how we get out there. I think what'll make them happy is when they have a completed project.
Right. As the potholes that the lady spoke of that are around to the side of the street, not in the drive things, is that part of the area that will be completed as well?
As I understand it, yes. Yes, all the potholes will be fixed.
Okay. So you would give the estimation then that your company would, we plan to have it started by next week and would be finished by?
We have been told by the contractor that they will be out to lay the asphalt next week. I do not have a completion date from then when they'll have all the other items done, no, sir.
So that completes the whole project?
That paves
No.
the project, but it still has to be striped. We still have to have the striping down and signage needs to be installed.
But you can drive on it safely?
Yes, sir.
That's all I think they want to hear is who's gonna do what, when, and what can we count on in the near future so that our homes, our cars, are not at risk. And I heard somebody mention $2,000 for a windshield. Well, I'd be dead. At any rate, I appreciate you, and I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm trying to answer in their behalf. I mean, I ask the questions, and I think they deserve answers, quite honestly, don't we
Yes,
all? And Mr. Mayor, we own that property. That's our property, right, for the city.
Do we own it?
Well,
The roadway is.
Where the roadway is?
The bulk of the roadway that is being worked on in this project is in Maumelle, with the exception of the half lane directly in front of Riverbend that extends the length of that property.
Okay.
That is in North Little Rock. And North Little Rock has paid for that portion.
Okay, so they went to work for us then, for the city.
North Little Rock paid for, they paid money for the contract, and then I think North Little Rock has worked on the retaining wall for the river bend, but North Little Rock has done their share in the project. Yes, sir.
Okay.
If that was the question.
All right, I appreciate it, but I would hope that we would have, at whatever point you feel like it's done, yeah, I'll go out there and that's like woo-woo. I'll go out there and drive down the street and see how it looks, okay?
Okay. Yes, sir.
I would appreciate, Mr. Mayor, if I could be called or notified, or I guess I can go out there daily and watch, but.
I'm sure you will hear cheers from the south side of town and a sigh of relief from me that you'll be able to hear wherever you live in Maumelle the moment this project is complete.
I would appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Mosley?
Yeah, I've got a few more questions.
Yes, sir.
And one thing I'll say is I've as a council member, I've seen this from both sides. I've seen the frustrations of Mayor Norris. He's had a lot of frustration. This is a project that kind of got dumped on him, and he went into it great guns to try to get this done and everything else, but there's been problem after problem. I don't know if Boyle's Constructions has not done a good job or not, but I've seen frustration on his part, and I know you guys are frustrated, and I would be too. And so hopefully this thing will get finished. But let me ask a few more remaining questions that didn't get asked. Mr. Holt got it out that this will be completed with the remaining funds. We're not looking at a cost overrun at this point. Is the asphalt thick enough, Mr. Andrews? It only looked to be about 1.25 inches thick to me.
Where that pothole is?
Yes, sir.
Yes, that did not get as thick as it was supposed to get, and that's why it failed, and that's why they're gonna tear that out and fix that spot.
Okay, what about the asphalt on the rest of the roadway? Are we gonna look at that same problem somewhere else, or do we?
We will have them test it. Most of what I saw going down met or exceeded what was required.
Okay. Okay. There's a small dam on the side of the road where some water flows down the hillside. It looks like a makeshift dam. Is that?
There's a drain pipe behind that.
Okay.
And that's for the detention ponds that come out of the apartment complex. And that's to catch the water that comes down through that ditch. It used to just flow down to a culvert in the roadside ditch.
Uh-huh. Now, is that little dam, is that gonna stay there the way it is? And
Yes.
is it working to keep the water off the road?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Put that on your to-do list when,
It's not meant to capture every storm event,
Yeah.
but it's designed to capture the storm events per the city ordinances.
okay. 'Cause there's, perhaps maybe there should have been a catch basin there and a big culvert that goes under the
There's a
street.
pretty good sized culvert, a head wall on the other side of that little dam, as you call it,
Okay,
to catch the water.
all right.
And I've driven down there through, after several major rain events, and initially, it was failing, and the contractor went back and reworked it, and it's doing a lot better.
All right. Oh, what will they do to correct that one big pothole area? They're gonna dig out quite a bit and they're.
They'll dig out a pretty good area there.
And the alligatoring extended about
All
54
of-
feet.
All of that will be torn out and fixed.
Okay. Okay, that's all I've got. If I would like the mayor to just ask if anybody didn't get a significant question answered, could.
I was wondering that, even though the construction is still ongoing, can they not cut the grass and do some lawn maintenance? The weeds are like this tall.
Pardon me?
I think she was asking about whether the grass and weeds can be cut in the meantime or something.
Yeah, we can get those cut. Isn't the contractor supposed to be doing that?
I will get with him.
I see Public Works, Mike Hogan shaking his head adamantly. If we could get them on that. Please.
They say y'all are supposed to do it, and y'all say they're supposed to do it. In the meantime, nobody does it. Last summer, the weeds were like 4 and 5 feet tall in that median. So is there a website?
Pardon me, can you come up to the microphone?
Hello, Sherry Salazar, 11500 Crystal Bay Circle, Riverbend. So, I don't even know what I was saying. Is there a plan or a website somewhere posted where we can go and look to see what the finalized plan is? Like, what are you going to do in the median? What kind of signage? When will the bike paths be painted on the street? I see people every day riding their bicycles, and I pray for them because they're going to get hurt. We have so much tractor-trailer activity up and down that road. Everybody speeds on that road. So I'm just want to know, like, where can we go to see what your final plans are?
With the modifications that we've been making, do we have a full final plan?
No, not with all of that information.
We have we have the original plans that'll show the parts of the road that are north of Counts Massey and Counts Massey that will illustrate those things, and then we don't have like a separate drawings for the part that would be south of Counts Massey.
Okay. My earlier statement was, you said that Maumell's gonna weed eat or cut the weeds down in the median. The contractor says y'all will, so I'm just wondering, on a communication standpoint, who is going to do that?
My understanding is it's supposed to be the contractor. We went round and round with them last time, and I think, Hogan, did you guys actually get out there and do it one time? Or did we finally
Contractor cut it.
get them to do it? Because, yeah, so it's supposed to be the contractor, and we just need to ride them until they get it done. So the contractor, but ultimately we're responsible for it, so you can.
So is there an email address that we can send emails? It's not been my experience, like I've sent you an email 11 months ago and you still haven't responded to that. So is there a system in place for people that live there that have no choice, I can't get to my house without being on that road. Is there a system in place that we can voice a concern, or we have an issue? How can this be corrected other than a phone call?
So
Because
if it is
those
to,
go unanswered.
if it depends on what the issue is. If it is to report the grass, you can send that to Public Works, and they'll get it over to the contractor or Roy. I don't know if you guys are giving out your contact info for that.
I can, but at some point it'll switch over to the city.
Yeah, once the project's done, it becomes city, and you can use things like the C-Click Fix apps for and that sort of stuff, which is the most effective way because it allows us to keep up with the tickets instead of just a phone call and a Post-it note that is still used. For other things, you can email me, and I'd send it also to the mayor@maumelle.org email address, and then that goes to other people as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And then you can call as well, but if you're just wanting an email, those are probably the most effective ways.
Okay, thank you.
The contractor has left the sides of the roads in such a mess. I don't think anybody could get a mower down. They never come back and did the finish work. They've never dressed up the sides like a road project is supposed to be. And there's gullies this deep washed in it. And in a hard rain, I'm sorry to dispute your claim, Mr. Andrews, but in a hard rain, there's 2 or 3 inches of water stands on the road between Count Massey and my house. It's not draining. And then the mud is another whole issue. The mud is just coming down like a mudslide when we get a hard rain, because the sides were never, they never planted them, they never sodded them, they never did anything with them.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to wrap this up, and maybe Mr. McReynolds may take one more question. I saw his hand up, and otherwise, we'll wrap it up after that, if that's good with you.
Works for me.
Okay,
You said there was one more question?
come on up, sir.
We just went through this discussion over the town center situation and the dedication of the road. Where are we at as far as the dedication or the process of the dedication of this finished process or project to the city? And has this road been constructed to a point that it's warrantable to the standards of the traffic that it's anticipated to have?
So it currently is dedicated roadway. If what you're talking about is when the project is completed and then handed off to the city and is no longer part of that contractor. So the very final phase that we go through is when we go back with a fine-tooth comb and point out every single thing that the engineer needs to do before they're done, because they're bonded, and all of that. So that includes things like stabilization of the right-of-way. I don't know that it'll be quite to your satisfaction, Ms. Watkins, but so that we can get our mowers on parts of it and the project is finalized, we go through a final inspection that includes the engineers, street department, and the like before we sign off and say the project is done.
To your knowledge, what is the average thickness of the asphalt that's been laid?
It depends where, if it's in a bike lane or in a roadway, and it's anywhere from 2 to 3 inches.
We don't have any bike lanes.
The driving.
Yes, there are bike lanes in front of Ms. Watkins' house and in front of the condos. There's a bike lane.
Along the side of the.
The outside.
Okay. In reading, it looks like the thickness of the asphalt will be dependent on the road traffic as well as the classification of the road. That graph in our ordinances does not go into detail. What is the traffic count, and were tractor trailers taken into consideration in the design process and the determination of the thickness of the asphalt that we're expecting to be laid?
That roadway thickness is based on city ordinances, and I wasn't here when the original design was done.
Okay?
So I can't answer that.
Minimum thickness, as I've read, is 2 inches, which is for a residential street.
So we have 3 inches, I believe, on the roadway and then 2 inches on the bike lanes. But yeah, so it was all built to city code and with the engineering, that was rated for a class 5, collector in that area.
Ultimately, who will test that thickness? Where there'll be any core samples taken?
I don't believe we do core samples on any of the roads that are here. We know that the base in the process is inspected pretty thoroughly, especially the base and subgrade by Public Works Department. So if you've ever seen them out there with those big trucks and then folks walking behind it and spray painting all over the ground, that's city street department inspecting and proof rolling, we call it, that base to make sure that there's no give and that it meets the city standard.
Okay.
All right, well, unless another council member has a question, I'm ready to wrap it up. And I'd like to thank Mr. Andrews and the mayor and all the residents that came tonight. Thank you very much for excellent questions. I think we got a lot out on the table tonight. So, thank you. I'm going to stay around for a minute. If anybody has any questions or wants to talk to me, I'll be happy to visit with you. And Ms. Gronwald may do the same. I'm not sure whether she has a commitment. But anyway, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
That concludes new business. We'll move on to mayor's comments. The only thing I'm pointing out is y'all should have received the flyer on your desk for the naming ceremony for the Bert Johnson Maumelle Diamond Center. Sign dedication will be at the ball fields at the sign closest to White Oak Crossing this Thursday, June 22nd at 2 p.m. Are there any council member comments? Councilmember Holt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have some comments to make and something to talk about. I would appreciate Chief Pickard approaching the podium. He is aware that I will be asking him.
Chief Pickard? You've been summoned, sir.
Apologies, I got caught in traffic.
Thank you, Chief. I spoke with Chief earlier today. I know he's been out of town in a training program. In our last meeting, we talked about the issue of money for our policemen and items that they need. I got to thinking later on after it was over, I want to make a challenge to each of the council members here and even the two that's not here tonight. I would like to propose that, and I've talked to the chief about it to get his permission first, that each of us works with the chief and each of us take a ride with a police officer for a 6 or 8 hour shift, whatever shifts that we can work on, whether it's night, morning, noon, whatever it is. I told him that if he would choose the officers at random, from everything from captains, sergeants, basic policemen, whatever, what we would do is to ride with the officers, people that we don't know, hopefully maybe have a pad with us to write down, ask questions and write down the answers to get to know that officer and find out as much as we can without being too personal, what brought them to Maumelle, what do they like about the police force, many questions about their stability and all that kind of thing. And then after we get past that, bring our notes back to the council and each of us share with the council what we did with that particular officer, whether it's male, female, African American, Caucasian, whatever. Be proud that we have loyal, dedicated officers. So I told the chief I would like to have him here and maybe you would have questions for him. But in the next couple of 3 weeks, each of us find a time after he has given us the name, probably what we might could do, I suggested to him that he choose his officers, we put it in something or other, and we draw a name out of that one. That way we are at random as to which officer we would drive with. Doesn't matter what the wrinkles are or anything about them. And that way it would be completely at random. So I think that way we would have an absolute idea about where we are with our police officers and the safety of this city, and then we could decide on what do we need to do about more budget. I understand, Mr. Mayor, that the problem with mid-year budget adjustments is not something we like to do, but I think we have a sense of urgency here, and I'll leave the rest of it to Chief Pickard if he would care to make comment. Or anybody have any questions at all about that? A lot of enthusiasm.
Chief?
I'll repeat it. I will challenge each of the council members to volunteer through the chief to take a ride with one of their officers in the next 2 or 3 weeks, whatever time you can allow, on whatever day of the week it is, and dedicate ourselves to become more familiar with our own public safety officers.
Chief?
The only caveat that I would add to this is we would pick somebody with the rank of lieutenant or below. They're the ones who actually are patrolling. Myself and the captains are more administrative, so you're not going to get to learn a lot. You'll be riding in the car or the office chair next to us. So,
just for the public in general, y'all offer ride-alongs.
That's correct.
As a service that folks can do if they meet certain background checks, and
yes, sir.
You guys have
we only had
staffing.
deposit temporarily during COVID, but since then we've opened that back up.
And then the a ride-along is a requirement for the Citizens Police Academy, which you guys will be holding when?
We don't have a firm date right now.
I was trying to plug it for you. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Councilmember Holt. Councilmember Mazzoni?
Yeah, that's a great idea, but we gotta be very careful how we do that, being on the other side of that sometimes when leadership comes down to do ride-alongs, it sometimes the rank and file just gotta be, yeah, be yourselves when you come out and do that. So you don't want to put the troops on the spot where they're more uncomfortable and it doesn't do what you want to do. I've seen these go good and bad. So.
Do you feel uncomfortable? Did I hear that right?
A lot of times, being the one chosen to carry some DVs, you
Some
can't
who?
be distinguished visitors if they're there, or the higher ups in the chain. It's hard. It presents some.
Pressure.
There is a perceived pressure. Thank you. There's a perceived pressure, so it's up to us to do what we can to remove said perceived pressure for the guys. You don't want that to be negative experience for them.
Thank you, Councilmember Mosley.
Yeah, I'll accept your challenge. I think that's a good idea. I've been remiss and haven't actually done a ride-along since I've been on the council, so I need to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any additional council member comments? We will move on to city attorney comments. City clerk comments. That concludes the business before the council. If there's nothing further, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that the city council meeting of June 20th, 2023 adjourn.
We've got a motion. Do I hear a second? Second. Motion is second. All those in favor, please signify by saying yes. Yes. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you very much.